Mr. Ballon d'Or numbers na babontin. Say, do we still agree? Say you mu and say you san common buy. Na the tenant say points no. We were chasing for 6,633 points. Me patcho mo so me ha. Na simple calculations been shown. And now no me catch you say formats no asesa. Na enkani nanka ya to about the mouth first unya be 10 points na yes unya 5 points. You better so mienu no anya 3. Do to so miensa na unya 1. And me catch you say afi die san asesa ne say ye ma obia kwan ma no to 10. Na 10 no di obedi first no ono ebenya 15 points if you do remember. Ama yenua a okogina mu de ma Ghana. Michael Otieje senior. Etoma Rodrigo Cascante number 1. Otoma Vinicius Junior 2. Otoma Ellen Haaland 3. Otoma Jude Bellingham 4. Otoma Lamine Yamal 5. 6 Dani Carvajal. 7 Toni Kroos. 8 Ademola Lookman. 9 Kylian Mbappe. And then 10 Phil Foden. Wait, votes from Ghana. Now Ken, the interesting thing the woman say, my calculations a bit. Na 49 countries and a two about Edema Rodrigo Cascante. Say oyen obo number 1. Ken, simple. 49 countries na Toma Rodri no. 4 times say first vote to be about 15. So automatically 735 votes. Vinicius Junior 32 countries and a two about Edema Vinicius Junior say Vini and number 1. What the multiplier Vini and so number 1 on onya 480 votes. Rodrigo Cascante the normal to about the man on Africa for 5 countries. Ghana can be Zambia can be Uganda can be South Africa can be and Gambon and so can be Vini the end Senegal, Algeria, blah 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 blah. In terms of first vote no kwano. Rodrigo Cascante enya 735 votes. And Vini enya 480 votes. Okay. In terms of first person, the nature say Rodri Eddie Asheno. However, this is where the problem ni see. In terms of second, third, fourth, near the no. Jude Bellingham, Dani Carvajal, echo affective Vinicius Junior votes.
Fan football from the Cameroon.
Some no makano. My calculations Trodo
917,550 from the same team. Our body does and Rodri now will be our city. And yes, and I think say the one man went to me and give me Jude. I think it's 200 votes in the separate more than 200 votes.
Who can say Jude Bellingham no man say Jude Bellingham between Jude Bellingham and Vinicius Junior votes now 212.
200 because Madrid for this idea say omo project Vini, omo project Jude. Enti Vinicius Junior na de na ekoso onkoye den onkoje o manfa even now we Vini kura free wa na de otoso mi no ye Dani Carvajal o man na Madrid the project o na eye Vini Carvajal kakra na Jude kura de ense o wachiri kura but numbers now Jude ababe fa wa no 917
yeah
917 then 41 the separate Rodri and Vinicius. Now Jude in quite 917.
Okay, so
it will be because the mother for no and yet the Oman project the right person.
And Pempia ye twaba na one club ewo place baako mienu miensa a omo nyina pre as against nipa baako no de bia vote na spread. Remember one example. Virgil van Dijk and Lionel Messi 2019. Messi enya 686 votes. Virgil van Dijk enya 679 votes. Messi had just 7 votes. 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 per and it win. You know what happened? Liverpool were projecting Virgil van Dijk. They were projecting Sadio Mane. They were projecting Mohamed Salah. Into about one. Otimu say, Omo beto Messi no. No akwato Sadio Mane. No akwato Virgil van Dijk. Liverpool for fans no so mo kwato a. No mo di Messi san so akosem. Into vote instead of saying Kadodo na beko Virgil van Dijk hono. It was spreading the most kakra kwa Sadio Mane ho na kakra so akọ Mohamed Salah ho. Any time Sadio ni besi bia no. Normally vote no call the neutral person ho. For instance, that particular year, Messi as a player, yeah, to about no one would first, no. Virgil van Dijk, more 8 more votes. Oh, first, walk cry the chain Messi. It is hard to see. I've given you just one example. Say anytime.
Komo ketwa bi diamaye. Senior Michael Oteje e wala na susisi ama meni ndi komo kakra. On the vote to Ballon d'Or Emma Ghana yedie no na meni ndi komo kwekwan bi na memisa no ye ba ko bi no. Senior, good morning. Good morning. Namia Dom, if I talk to me, can you? Okay. Mana me we kakra ma me kakra. When you dim komo kakra bi e fa Ballon d'Or no ho, and of course na wugina mu Ghana evo 2 year de no enso de maye. But na me bi say decision and saying Rodri first, Vini second, Holland third, Jude fourth, and me ba joining komo kakra fa.
Oh, let me say normally every year you are given a set of criteria, so you are told that of course it's an individual award, but you must consider what the player won. You consider fair play. You consider a number of things. I don't remember exactly what it was, but the email always gives you a set of criteria that you are supposed to consider when you're voting. When I looked at the year 2024. I was no doubt in my mind that the best player in the world in 2020 over the course of that season was Rodri. I am not one of those who judges good players only by goals and assists and the rest, because I think football is way broader than that. And I think that for too long there's been too much focus on who is the guy who scores the goals. That's a function of Messi and Ronaldo. And so because of them numbers, the final numbers with goals became the most important thing. But when I looked at 2024, I was not convinced it was somebody like that. I thought that it was a deep-lying midfielder who had a big impact on his club, Manchester City. They won a 4th straight Premier League title, unprecedented. He was a main man for Spain. I know some people have asked that he wasn't the best player for Spain at the Euros, but officially he was the best player for Spain. I just thought that overall he was the best player. It was close for me between him and Vinicius Jr. because I think as well that Vinicius was the most outstanding individual in that Real Madrid team when you combine everything, especially in the clutch moments. And when I say clutch moments, I watched too many Real Madrid games where a player needed to step up and do something extraordinary. And Vinicius was always there. For me, the fact that Brazil didn't play as well for Brazil in the Copa America was the difference between him and Rodri for me. I thought that when it was the Euros, Rodri showed up, and I thought when it was the Copa America, Vinicius didn't show up. I didn't think that I've also conditioned myself not to always, and when I'm saying always, because I don't want anybody to say that I don't consider the Champions League. But when it came to the Champions League, I thought there were too many. You could share the glory for Real Madrid around considerably well. So that's why somebody like Carvajal, I put him so high up.
Okay.
There was Bellingham. There was Vinicius. There were a lot of people in that Real Madrid team, reflective of that team, who were decisive. I thought the most decisive person overall was Vinicius. But the reason I didn't put too much premium on the Champions League was because in the Champions League itself, when it came to the key moments, he wasn't necessarily the main person. Carvajal scored twice in the final, for instance. And you had Bellingham come up with goals and that sort of thing. So I really thought that overall, I tried to find a nice balance. I know the controversial one is Haaland in number 3. I picked Haaland because I think it was not because I picked Haaland because in 2024, I think Haaland's goals. So I've spoken about not always depending on goals because Vinicius doesn't score crazy numbers, and Rodri obviously doesn't score crazy numbers, but goals are still very important, and Haaland scores crazy numbers.
Haaland, Messi about so all crazy numbers, saying the numbers, but put Haaland ahead of Jude, with Jude season on our Madrid. Our Champions League, even Euros, no crana, yeah, fan is a team, or the team there, they do final. So, how long ahead of Jude? Why?
Because I really genuinely think that Haaland had a really good 2024. I also think that when I look at the balance of everything, I think that too many people disregard Haaland because they say that he plays in a team where a lot of chances are created. Sometimes when you're voting, you also vote with consistency in mind. It's not like his numbers dropped, but this is the guy who walked into the toughest league in the world and shattered every goal scoring record that there was. Everybody said second season syndrome, it will catch him off guard. And he was as brilliant as they were, the main guy who supplied the goals again. Everybody also forgets that whilst Manchester City didn't win the league, Manchester City only last week was only last week that they lost their long unbeaten, their record unbeaten run in the Champions League. So that's as good a team in the world as you could count. And I thought that over the course of the year, Haaland was that good. I am also a bit. It's not like I'm not a Jude Bellingham fan, and he's at number 4 for a reason. But I think that a lot of the Bellingham affection is as much about the country he plays for as much as how good a footballer he is. I think that how good he is amplified by where he comes from. So Bellingham is a brilliant footballer, but you will hear about Bellingham 2 million times more than you hear about Rodri, more than you hear about Haaland, and everything. Every time I watch the game of football, commentators were starting to tell us that Bellingham was the best player in the world long before the season ended, and I was not convinced by that.
Oh, okay. But back to Vinny Rodri conversation. We're just 41 votes and a separate the two. And of course, Oko and maybe in our first and second. But now we'll come about Champions League, Euros and Copa America. Copa America, you will say Vinny, very bad, or Copa America. Then Oba Madrid, Champions League, and there were times games in the Jude, games in the even you will say Obi Thibaut Courtois even in the final, Cavaya in the final, Andrew Lonin in the semi-final against City, and Hoseru against Bayern Munich. Team Madrid for so many players are normally winning games and the more I agree on that. But what was Spanish national team to Rodri? Even in the final, we try, but still Spain won the final. When I know free man 0-0. Spanish team no almost so Cavaya or more Lamine Yamal or more Nico Williams. Other players are almost game changers. I don't know one fairness one Real Madrid, on Vinny.
Oh, me and interesting my okay. But when I'm voting, I cannot vote and say I'm saying so the factors that you raised about the influence of other players in the Spain team. When you go to, for instance, so you go to Lamine Yamal, you go to Nico Williams, you go to all of them. But I still think that the main factor for Spain in going as far as they went and winning was Rodri. That is also one of the reasons why Vinicius Jr. is as high up he was. But you mentioned a factor yourself. In that Real Madrid team over the course of the season, and in the Champions League, you could count about 8 players. A lot of players who were clutch players in different moments. At the end of the day, when I'm voting and I have to do 1/2 and the rest, there will be one factor or the other that determines that. And I was really convinced beyond every doubt that when you look at this year that has gone past, consistency of performance, which player has the most influence on their team, and everything, I was in no doubt that Rodri impacts and affects games in a way that is not fanciful. And your goals, and your that sort of thing, and your tricks, on your showboating, on your rabona and norma. And it becomes very easy to think that because of that he's not influential. But I think without any doubt, and I'm glad that of the 100 journalists cumulatively, almost everybody agreed. Of the 100 journalists cumulatively, they agreed on that. I am also glad that the people who did the UEFA player of the tournament at the Euros saw the same. Some people have told me that he wasn't even the best player in England. I don't even want to talk about that because, sometimes these things happen. But ultimately, when it came to the big international tournaments, Rodri was always in and around there. And I think that without any doubt, he was the best player in 2020.
Oh, okay. Nothing say top 10 so no. I agree. And say baby and I know you how long. Third position, but as well as playing and most
Ellen
Holland position per and me issues Holland position no and another issues kakra.
But that's the beauty of these things. There will always be a lot of disagreements over. Votes no yes and no. Quite some time back.
Okay.
And in order to protect the integrity of the system, when you send, you can go back and screenshot and all those things. And then I remembered that's what I did.
But top 10, a quick one. Lautaro Martinez, one consider on your top 10.
No.
Didn't you?
No, I don't think he was top 10 in the year.
But he won the Copa America for Argentina.
It was not. Lautaro, but you see, the problem with players is this argument about this player won that, you consider it against a lot of factors.
Sure.
I know that he was brilliant for Inter, but Lautaro is not a player I will put in the top 10 players in the world. He's a brilliant player. There are always the guys who are in and around it, but who are never into it. So, for instance, you can argue that over the course of the season, Lautaro was a better footballer than Lookman was.
Okay.
I don't dispute that.
But who plays Lookman on 8?
Yes, because I need also, when I'm doing these things, to consider a lot of things. By a lot of stretch.
African bias,
there be. We mean Ghana need Nigeria need the bias, the African bias come Nigeria. But if a player shows up in an European Cup final and scores a hat trick, the first player to do that in a major European Cup final, everything else becomes secondary. Because sometimes players, all of us, even in our journalism career, there will be one moment. That's why when you are voting for Journalist of the Year and the rest, it's not as if the judges consider only one story. But all the good work that you did, there will be one particular day that they will pinpoint and say, this is the defining moment. And I thought for me, that hat trick is also has been defining. Of course, he's gone on to prove this season and everything that he's as good as he is. Somebody was asking me on Twitter why I put him ahead of Mbappe. Because in many ways, Mbappe is a victim of his own success. We've come to expect a bit more of him. But,
okay.
It is what it is, like we say.
Sure. And sir, Major, why busy? But a quick one on criteria. Criteria, I'm a question because criteria no more the mamma it be moon said that about 5 countries. And Vinicius Junior in the top 10 yenya about 4 countries and Rodri in the top 10 even with the pass and criteria and be and so
no, I suddenly come into you. So you see, you are giving a number of criteria. You're not giving one criteria. If there was one criteria, then they will be doing it for a vote. Also, if it was straightforward, then they will not ask 100 people to vote and then give marks based on where you place people. So the voting itself, its system itself, recognizes for a difference in opinions and approach to the way you select it. Based on the criteria, you understand? Based on the criteria that you are giving. So you were asking me about Lautaro Martinez, for instance. In somebody's mind, Lautaro Martinez satisfies the criteria of having won a trophy for club, of having won a trophy for country, and then they will have to, and then the other factors that comes in. But if somebody can decide that it doesn't mean anything because maybe he's not the most decisive thing. So every time I have received an email about voting for Ballon d'Or, the criteria is very clear. And if you see the way I voted, for instance, I chose Xabi Alonso as coach of the year. In my mind, he satisfied all the things that you would have wanted. I was very clear in my mind that in 2024, anybody who takes any team through a competition unbeaten is unique. If anybody who goes through Europa League, Champions League, German this and loses one game. And we're talking a top 5 league in the world. So I was convinced beyond every doubt. But people put so much premium on the Champions League. And it doesn't matter to people that Ancelotti has done it 5 times. Those people can realistically argue that it is a unique achievement to win the Champions League 5 times for an individual. So I thought that it is even more unique that a young coach comes into a system, goes through a whole season unbeaten, except in one particular match. You can argue that it was the most important match. But when you put all of it together, a lot more people think that, and that's why the system is like that. So it's not an issue of whether we vote with criteria or not. It's because the voting system itself makes room for the differences in opinion in terms of how you interpret the criteria and how you award the marks based on the criteria.
Oh, okay. Senior,
I just want to essay. I didn't hear massa. So long as something is not mass, 1 + 1 = 2, there would always be a room for people to interpret it. And when you're giving the criteria, people interpret it. That's why it's a wide pool, and then you can do whatever you want to do with it.
Okay.
You see, for instance, I will not be able to wake up tomorrow when they give me, because I have to choose from a list. You understand? From the player of the year, you have to choose from a list of 30. Coach of the year, there's a list that's attached to the email. The goalkeeper of the year, you have to choose.
So Senior, you think you discussed with us several times. I think the numbers and the doors to do. Yensamba back to the final 3. Said you be more vote so that's a bit easy. The amamo chance about 30, 25. The final 3.
No. So if you do the final 3 as well, so for instance, last year one of these were a final 3. So see, I mean, so what they almost studio in your account. Sorry, so me, you're familiar with all of them. So what do you need to handle this year? All of us will have a difference in opinion about who the top 3 in the world was. You understand?
That's a money easy chance.
I think the bigger pool allows for the different considerations, to be honest with you.
Oh, okay.
It allows for, so you see, for instance, the CAF Awards has a list of 10 players that those who vote have to vote from. There's some guy from Algeria whose record is no better than Kudus Mohammed's record. But trust me, somebody will pick that guy. If you limit it to 3 and the rest, you are giving the organizers too much control over it.
Oh.
Basically, they've decided for you what the top 3 is, and then the fun in it is gone.
Okay. Senior, you better say no. Okay, sure. And Michael Utieje on the tour Ghana Abano Ballon d'Or and you didn't do come over church and in Bebre Serenity City and all to Rodri 1, Vinicius 2, Haaland 3, Jude 4, Cavaya 5, 6 in Lami Yama 7 5 year Lami Yama
6 Danny Kabaya
6 in Kavaya.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. And 7 year Tony Cruz, 8 Lukman, 9 Mbappe, 10 Foden. Inteno Michael Otieje. And so Eddie no Ederson as you didn't have this year. Na you made him come kakra. Ofie and some Michael Church sending them.
Very unfortunate to be a Modoswan. Vote na chiche mu
bebre but Michael say Oma kwan so na ye final 3 na Oma organizers no more more powerful.
I agree.
I 3 peswa one we na yibi afa baby ana into a wide boy
30 na we choose first 10 You're bad. I think the only conversation, if you look at the numbers, clearly Vinicius Junior, the votes no do na become a Bellingham, become a Danny Kabaya. What I say, my worry is that these are the same people. Senior Michael Otieje, no one ever sounds what to about next year. If you disrespect them by saying say Munima Baron to 1-1, the same people no best. It's in Madrid for they should be very careful how
Vinicius over 1,100 plus 120 something
129
1,129
yeah
na Jude 979 that just says Nina be Jude because 41 and a separate on it only Rodri first. The award in England.
We cry no more. Van Dijk seven. Messi is seven.
Messi is seven. Van Dijk. Until now they depend.
We cry the support one.
Na young comrade.